everyone, and welcome back. This is Wendy Historian, and today we are talking about some fandom terminology. So if you're new to the fandom, you may be seeing a lot of fan accounts that have OT4 or OT5 written in the bio, on Twitter, on Tumblr, even here on TikTok. And you may be wondering, what exactly do those letters and numbers mean? Well, the terms OT4 and OT5 actually draw their meaning from the term OTP. OTP is a very old fandom term that actually predates One Direction itself and goes all the way back to the early days of internet fandom. OTP stands for One True Pairing and refers to a person's top ship. And in case somehow you don't know what a ship is a relationship. And basically, when you ship two people together, it means you support the idea of them being romantically linked. So your one true pairing, or your top ship, is the ship that you hold above everything else. When you read fan fiction, that's usually your go-to couple. And after Zayn's departure from One Direction, a lot of fans were so angry with him that they started to say that the band was better off without Zayn, and that Zayn was no longer One Direction. While other fans felt pretty strongly that whether Zayn was technically in the band or not, Zayn would always be part of One Direction, and One Direction was not really One Direction without Zayn. Directioners had such strong feelings about this that to save time and arguments, we would just put OT4 or OT5 in our bio to identify ourselves right up front as to whether we thought One Direction was all 5 boys or whether One Direction was the 4-piece.
Niall, Louis, Liam, Harry, Zach.
It's Zayn.
Sure, whatever you say, big guy.
With the OT, of course, meaning your one true One Direction.
And actually, for a while there, that was a way for people who identified as OT5 to kind of poke fun whenever one of the boys would do or say something particularly cringeworthy, embarrassing, or just simply that we didn't agree with. People would go online and say that they were now OT4, and sometimes they were serious, but sometimes it was just sort of a way to let off some steam.
Now, the fighting was really bad when Zayn left, so putting this in our bios was a really great way to identify ourselves and also to identify what people to avoid so that we didn't end up in an argument with our fellow Directioners.
But it's been a few years since then, and things have definitely changed, especially when all the boys went solo. Now when you see an OT5 in someone's bio, it very well could mean that they consider the true One Direction to be all 5 boys of the original lineup, but it could also indicate that they support all 5 boys on their solo careers and endeavors. Whereas, if you see someone with an OT4 in their bio, it could very well indicate that there is one of the boys whose solo careers they do not support. In the past, it was usually something that you could take to mean they weren't following Zayn's solo career, but nowadays, after the whole thing with the Logan Paul interview, it very often means that the person is simply not following Liam on his solo career. But what about if you see an OT9 in a bio? OT9 can mean one of 2 things. In the past, OT9 used to mean that you considered One Direction to not only be all 5 boys in the original lineup, but also all 4 members of their live band. Nowadays, however, if you see an OT9, it most likely means that the person supports not only all 5 boys of One Direction, but also is a fan of the band 5 Seconds of Summer, which, because One Direction sort of helped start 5 Seconds of Summer's career and always toured with them, it was a pretty good indication that someone considers the entire One Direction experience to also include 5 Seconds of Summer as a band.
Now, as for myself, I am an OT5. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as we all show each other some respect.